The dagger moves at a surprising speed. In an instant, it's about to strike Xian. 17 moves at lightning speed and grabs the dagger in his hand. Who is it? Xian looks around vigilantly. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind. Haha, indeed worthy of being in the same series as me. The reaction is still very quick. Just saw a young man in a windbreaker. He stood on the wall wearing sunglasses. He smiled and took steps towards Xian, and indicated that he just wanted to test Xian. Later, he reached out to introduce himself to Xian. My name is Gecko. Colonel Chen asked me to come over. Xian frowned as he looked at Gecko extending his hand. Do you know that this is very dangerous? Dangerous? Gecko seemed somewhat astonished. This level of attack. Can this be considered dangerous for our Spider Classic? Clearly, Gecko did not understand Xian's meaning. The sister on the side already had a cold look in her eyes as she stared at him malevolently. She asked Xian, Brother, do you want me to take action? At the same time, Dad and Mom appeared at the window as well. They stared straight down, as if ready to take action at any moment. Xian took in the scene with satisfaction. It had been a long time since he had seen his family working together so harmoniously. He quickly pulled Gecko away. When I said it's dangerous, I meant you're in danger. If Xian's family decides to make a move, Gecko's life would be in jeopardy. Gecko thought Xian was angry. Awkwardly, he began to explain. Bro, in our group, there are those who greet each other with guns when they meet. You said I crossed 2 satellite towns to come and see you. Aren't you going to invite me upstairs to sit for a while? Xian looked at him with some pity. He actually still wants to go upstairs and sit. Next time for sure. He changed the subject and asked about the gecko. What is the purpose of Colonel Chen asking you to come? The gecko lives in the building Xian. Bro, you've got a lot of face. To help you with the pre-employment test. 6 monsters from Qingyang City collectively arrived at the second city. 6 monsters of Qingyang City? Xian was puzzled. The gecko, however, acted mysterious. You'll know when you get there, he said. 17 looked somewhat malicious. Xian quickly spoke up. Sister, don't gesture at his neck. This startled the gecko. Who are you talking to? Thinking they were both mutants, Xian didn't hide anything. My younger sister. She seems to want to tear your head off right now. But you can rest assured. She usually listens to me. What if circumstances are not ordinary? The gecko looks terrified. No wonder everyone says you are dangerous. At that moment, the electronic watch on the gecko's wrist started ringing. They're here. The detection notification has arrived. Meet at the Manhwa edifice on the eastern side of the city in 15 minutes. 6 monsters of Qingyang City are being used to evaluate Xian's power. First time coming together to the second city. Received a sudden notice for the onboarding test. Xian was obviously a bit surprised. 2 geckos with spider classic power. He plans to compete with him in speed to see who arrives first. Watching the gecko rapidly climbing on the wall, 17 looked at Xian. Should we follow them? It can be seen that Xian is currently deep in thought. It seems that he has made a decision. He resolutely chose to take the subway and enjoy the air conditioning. Internally, he is still criticizing Gecko. This guy doesn't know the last subway. Can I go directly to Manhwa edifice? Just out of the subway station, and saw a gecko rushing towards him in a great hurry. Halfway there, he realized Xian wasn't following. He had to turn back to find him. Unexpectedly, Xian had no sportsmanship and took the subway. 2 people walked into Manhwa edifice and saw a group of experts from various fields apart from Jing Chen. The leader is Chief Chen from the Institute for Special Pollution Research. The 6 individuals are the 6 monsters of Qingyang City, as mentioned by Gecko. Xian's examination and the subsequent guidance plan. They will all be completed by them. They will first test Xian's spiritual level. With this data, they will know how to guide Xian in the future, avoiding the possibility of losing control. Guidance is to help you enhance your variable power. Each power has different strengths and weaknesses. Jing Chen is worried that Xian may not understand, so he explains it to him specially. Arrived indoors. There are several targets placed in the distance. They first tested Xian's shooting power. Jing Chen picked up a gun. Knowing Xian has not received professional firearms training, the training begins now. She skillfully loaded the magazine in front of Xian. Opened the safety latch. Moved like flowing clouds in water. Fired a shot at the target. Then handed the pistol to Xian. Okay, training is over. Xian was obviously confused. Is that it? What did you train me for? The gecko on the side spoke up, expressing, for us, in our opinion. As long as you know how to unlock the safety catch and aim at the opponent, the training is complete. After taking the pistol, Xian aimed at the target in front of him and pulled the trigger. Looking at the screen displaying the target, he found that the shots hit the bullseye of the next target. The people present were dumbfounded. Is this all the Spider Classic power user has got? Gecko stepped forward to cheer up Xian and told him not to be nervous. It was difficult to hit accurately at the beginning. At this time, a little hand touched the gun in Xian's hand. Seems to be very curious about what this is. With his little sister holding onto his arm that held the gun, he felt in that moment. The entire person seemed to have turned into a precise machine. Pupils contracted. The target in front of his eyes became unusually clear. He gently pulled the trigger. The recoil didn't even make his arm tremble. From the display screen, it could be seen that the shot hit the red dot in the center. A bullseye! Xian's performance surprised everyone in the audience. However, Xian's subsequent actions left people feeling puzzled. He suddenly intertwined his two fingers and dismantled the gun's components one by one. Only to see 17 looking disdainful, saying that shooting guns is not fun. Taking it apart is still alright. Xian can only helplessly express that he doesn't really like this. Can you try testing something else? Gecko's response seems a bit different, old friend. We are naturally gun players, right? How can we play Spider Classic without guns? Chief Chen smiled and tactfully made a roundabout response. He thinks that Xian has already shown talent in using firearms. Let's try another type now. At this time, 3 soldiers pointed their guns at Xian to test his ability to dodge bullets. However, thinking about the consequences of getting injured himself and the reaction of his family, he refused the test. The most surprising test was the microspace infiltration test. With the help of his younger sister, Xian, who is 1.75 meters tall, managed to fit into a small box. Arriving at the psychic power test, a professor held an apple in his hand and asked Xian to use psychic power to take the apple over. Xian looked at 17 and wanted her to help bring the apple over. 17 pouted and said, "I'm your sister. I'm not here to work for you. If you were in danger, it would be one thing. But right now, there's nothing wrong." She suddenly brightened up her eyes. It seems like she has discovered something. Haha, she excitedly rushed towards the professor in front of her. Not only is she a Spider Classic, but she also has a pair of penetrating eyes. She refused to help Xian with the psychic power test of picking up an apple from a distance. She with an extraordinary mind. Instead, she became interested in the professor's hair. She found out that the professor was bald and mischievously wanted to take off his wig. Fortunately, Xian stopped her in time. Judging whether the mental state of a mutation is easily out of control. A female professor. She conducted the final psychological test on Xian. Meanwhile, several other professors drew conclusions based on the data that had just been tested. According to the data calculations, his power should be at AC level. As for his potential, it can only be determined through an evaluation based on psychological test reports. When the female professor walked in, the entire office became tense. She looked at the data of the Xian psychological test, lost in thought. Psychological test major issues with it. He is too normal. Even more normal than I am. I focus on chatting with him about his childhood in the orphanage and his experiences after leaving. He was very cooperative. He showed no resistance at all when I asked about his family. He even described his patterns and scenes of interaction with his family, and the possibility of his family's true existence. After the Red Moon incident, where can you find people who are completely normal in mind? But he turned out to be very normal. Normal is a bit abnormal. Exian, who has a strong moral compass, was discovered by the female professor. She found that he was deeply influenced by someone. That would be the former director of the Red Moon Bright Orphanage, who remained sober, rational, and true to their principles during that crazy, confusing period of time. Since Exian has 3 family members, the spider classic power comes from the younger sister. They speculate that Exian has 2 other powers. Exian did not deny this. Perhaps for him, it's just that he cannot easily use those 2 powers. The professor wearing a wig also agrees with this statement, because he found that Exian's spiritual level is indeed very high. During the psychic power test, Exian refused to take the apple, but the professor's wig tipped quietly. The specially made wig requires force to be pulled. Exian, however, could secretly tug at it. Such power and control made the professor feel that Exian could even crush his head. On the side, Jing-Chen seemed to be thinking about something. If the Red Moon Bright Orphanage explosion is related to Exian, that should not only be the brain, and everyone present will probably collapse. At a meeting a few days ago, the document provided by Professor Bai recorded the explosion incident that occurred 10 years ago. The entire 3-story orphanage was completely destroyed. Only 2 people survived. One of them is Exian. The other one is Rujin. Shaozing is the principal of Red Moon Bright Primary School. Due to short staffing in their department that year, they had to hastily close the case. Now it seems there are many doubtful points. For example, no flames or other explosive residues were found at the scene. From this analysis, it is very likely to be a terrible incident of psychic power getting out of control. I know that the risk of Exian losing control is indeed high, but it has been found that he has been working hard to keep it under control. During the meeting, Professor Bai personally decided to approve the recruitment of Exian and also provide guidance. And after hearing Professor Bai's description, the rest of them were filled with excitement inside. Even feel Exian's spiritual level may exceed 500. In that case, as long as 2 more intensifications are done, won't it be possible to directly enter the 2nd stage? When Jing-Chen asked the professors whether they agreed to guide Exian, 6 monsters of Qinggang City surprisingly unified and raised their hands in agreement. In another office, Exian was alone with Gecko. Thinking that Exian loves to eat candy, Jing-Chen deliberately arranged some candies in the office. The bored Gecko inquired, when did Exian discover their own power? Before he could answer, Gecko began talking about him. The first time he discovered his power. It was a winter day with heavy snowfall. He was wandering the streets. He ended up seeing a young lady braving the snowstorm on her way to the night shift. Despite having less than 50 yuan left in his pocket, he decided to help her. But he still gave the money to the young lady, letting her feel a little warmth in this cold winter. I know you don't like to hear these sentimental words. Omitted 1,000 words here. Gecko started towards the passionate young lady. But at this moment, suddenly there was the sound of security guards knocking on the door outside. Gecko was suddenly frightened, so scared that he quickly hid inside a nearby cabinet. Until the people outside moved the cabinet to the security department, where they surrounded the Gecko, who was only wearing a pair of underwear, with guns. He only realized then. It turned out that he had climbed into a shoe cabinet that was only 30 centimeters high. Exian wondered if it was really a good idea to talk about such things. However, Gecko didn't mind at all. He believed that everyone in the department was on the same team, and that these matters would eventually come to light. Besides, there are only a few people in our department who are normal anyway. The drunkard would say that he can see dragons flying after drinking too much every day. The doll is so good-looking that it can drive all the men in the world crazy. But ironically, she is a simpleton. Just chatting. Gecko discreetly mentioned Jing Chen's matters to Xian. Do you know what color her underwear is? 17 suddenly appeared. Because Xian didn't allow her to eat too much sugar just now. At this moment, she was feeling a bit moody. Expressionless, she said it's pink. Pink? Xian was a little surprised. Unable to help herself, she blurted out. Oh my goodness, you really know. Gecko immediately became interested and asked him about the details and styles. I don't know when Jingchen has already walked in. What are you talking about? These words startled Xian and the gecko. A boss who looks cold and domineering. Behind the scenes, she's actually a fan of pink lingerie. I don't know when Jingchen had already walked in with the files. The gecko that was quietly discussing the color of his underwear startled the two of them. Fortunately, Jingchen didn't seem to care much about this issue. What is needed at the moment is to let Xian familiarize himself with his own power before guiding him. For this, Jingchen arranged for the gecko, who is also a member of Spider Classic, to assist. In the initial stage, Xian will accompany him to perform cleaning tasks several times so that he can quickly understand himself. Coincidentally, there is a particularly polluted cleaning task tonight. He asked Xian to follow the gecko to become familiar with the process. This is your code name. Xian picked up the file handed to him by Jingchen and took a look. Although it was no different from before, he was still curious. Why was his code name single unit? When getting up to leave, Jingchen seemed to remember something. She lowered her voice and looked at the gecko. If you don't want to strip naked, run to the busiest street, and dance until your legs break, then don't talk behind my back about me when you bring newcomers along. Understand? The gecko shivered in response to Mingzi, because he knew deeply that Jingchen from the hypnotic class could really do it. As she was leaving, she turned back to look at Xian. And the outfit I wore today is black. Xian listened without daring to nod, sitting stiffly. At this moment, the straightforward voice of younger sister came from the side. She's lying. That evening, they arrived at the site that needed pollution cleanup. Gecko handed Xian a pair of wireless earphones. When Gecko put on the earphones, he seemed inexplicably excited. Connect the team's line. Access the team's line for information analysis. In the channel of the earphones, a voice conducting a signal test can be heard soon. The gecko, however, had a sly look on its face. It opened its mouth and said, "Dear Linda," and started flirting with the information analyst on the other end of the channel. She seems accustomed to this kind of behavior from the gecko. She responded coldly and directly, "I'm not Linda. I'm Tai Chui, with the last name Tai." After that, I began to report to them about the information related to this particular pollution incident. After the briefing was completed, the gecko immediately climbed up the wall at high speed. He waved his hand towards Xian and said, "Brother, come up quickly." Seeing this, Xian turned to look at 17 and said, "Sister, let's go up too. I want to eat candy." 17 was still emotional at this moment, still thinking about the candies in Xian's pocket that he didn't give her to eat. Xian teased her for a while. Children eating too much candy can cause tooth decay. She seemed a little angry. "Do you think I'm a child? You are a kid. The pretty kind." Upon hearing this, 17 happily reached out both hands. "I not only want to eat candy, also want to eat the kind that is black, sweet, and bitter. I want 10 pieces." Ignoring the hustle to no avail, Xian nodded helplessly. He took out a chocolate from his pocket and handed it to his sister. After finishing it, 17 happily snuggled up to Xian. "Brother, let's go!" Gecko saw that it took him so long to come up and couldn't help teasing Xian. "I thought you took the subway again." Shortly after, he whispered to Xian, "Did you see the pollution source?" Following the gecko's gaze, Xian looked into the distance. With the help of his sister's power, he saw a factory building about 300 meters away. His vision zoomed in again. Through the windows of the factory, he saw the scene inside. There were many people working overtime, and the whole operation appeared busy and orderly. Everyone seemed like precision instruments, blank and numb, as if work was the only thing on their minds. Even when their hands were cut by sharp machinery, there was not the slightest reaction. Xian was suddenly astonished. The people in this factory seemed to lack awareness and pain sensation. In a remote illegal factory, lights were still on late at night. A group of workers tirelessly worked for multiple days, without stopping even if their arms were cut by sharp machines. They seemed to be without perception and pain sensation. Gecko pointed to a spot inside the house, asking Xian if they saw the pollution source. Through the window, Xian saw a middle-aged man in a suit gesticulating excitedly in the factory, muttering something. Xian looked at Gecko and asked, "Is he the pollution source? What is he saying?" Gecko asked Xian to distinguish carefully. Spider Classic should be able to hear what he's saying. Little sister walked over to Xian with a smile. "Big brother, I'm here to help you." With the power of 17, he suddenly became particularly agile. Not only could he see everything in the distant factory clearly, he could even capture the sound of the machines rotating vividly. He heard the voice of this man D speaking. "Work. We must work. We are all lucky survivors after the great disaster. In the wilderness, no one knows how many lunatics are wandering around. Many people can't even eat their fill. The reason is that they simply don't work like we do. We have only work. We must work harder. Only through hard work can we enter life in the main city. If we don't work, we will end up starving to death like those people outside of the city." He became more and more ecstatic as he spoke. "Let's fight it out. If we don't work, what's the difference between us and the dead?" Watching those who have already collapsed from exhaustion and don't know if they're dead or alive, they stood up again, swaying under his passionate cries. Gecko looked at Xian. He had heard Jing Chen say that Xian could see spiritual monsters. "What can you see now?" However, Xian shook his head gently. He couldn't see that kind of thing, only a person standing there. The situation is the same as Gecko's. Gecko concluded that the middle-aged man is, strictly speaking, the pollution source. At this point, he can only be considered a spiritual mutant. Suddenly, the headphones broadcast the voice of the information analysis team, Chui Tai. She is reporting the information of middle-aged man, Zheng Yuanxiong, the factory manager of Yuanxiong Textile Factory, 40 years old. Entered satellite town at the age of 27 and established this textile factory, but managed it poorly. It faced closure several times. 10 days ago, someone discovered a mutation at this textile factory and reported it to the security department, but when the investigation team arrived, the situation is already hard to control. The people in the factory will attack anyone who enters without discrimination and tries to stop them from working, or they may infect them to become one of them. They have been working continuously for 2.5 days without eating, drinking, or sleeping. If not stopped, everyone is likely to work until death. Yuanxiong may also lose control at any time. At that time, the contamination range will greatly increase, even spreading to several surrounding factories. Therefore, headquarters has ordered a direct cleanup. Upon hearing about the direct cleanup, Xian's heart sank slightly. There are nearly over 100 people in that factory. Gecko seemed to see Xian's thoughts. He also hoped to avoid bloodshed if possible. After all, some of these workers only have a mild infection and can be saved. The advice given by Chui Tai: use a specially made powerful anesthetic gun. Resolve it from a distance. Force the pollution source to instantly pass out. However, Yuanxiong can influence 100 people at once. I'm sure his spiritual level must be high. Gecko is worried that before hitting him, that powerful psychic power will stop his bullets. At this time, Chui Tai issued instructions to the support team. Let them trigger an explosion on the east side of the factory 30 seconds later. This will distract Yuan Xiongzheng and make his psychic power unstable. And that was the moment when Gecko fired the gun. He had only one fleeting opportunity. Gecko agreed immediately. He took out a long and slender sniper rifle. He leaped forward, his legs hooked onto the iron railing. Ready. He hung upside down, aiming the muzzle at the factory building 300 meters away. The 30-second countdown begins. The voice of Cui Tai counting down is heard on the channel. Time flies, counting down to the final moments. Get ready. A huge booming sound suddenly erupts. At the same time, the corners of Gecko's mouth slightly lifted. Without any hesitation, he pulled the trigger. A needle-like. The bullet flew out from the muzzle at high speed. After passing through the window, it accurately nailed Yuan Xiongzheng's back of the neck. He slowly slumped to the ground. It seems that this anesthetic is very effective. Done! He looked towards Xian. Brother, it's time to wrap things up. Haha, settled. Gecko tied Yuan Xiongzheng up tightly and put a glass helmet on him. But Xian vaguely felt that something was wrong. Yuan Xiongzheng had passed out, but the workers were still mechanically going about their tasks. At this moment, 17 gently pulled Xian and said, Big brother, you should take a look. Under the desk, there was a little girl in a red dress curled up, holding a cotton-woven doll. Staring in the direction of Xian and the gecko. Seems to be somewhat afraid. Asked in a soft voice. Why don't you guys go to work? This little girl can control people's mental states. Under her influence, the workers all turned into obedient work machines. Records show that she was the 8-year-old daughter of the factory manager. However, she tragically died in just 1 year. The cause of death was that the factory manager was too busy working, neglectful in taking care of her. So much so that she was pulled into the factory machinery while trying to pick up a toy. The factory manager, due to excessive longing for his daughter, generated a mutation. He then used his own psychic power to reshape a daughter. Information analyst Cui Tai was sweating profusely at this point. This indirect pollution source can already be directly observed. The spiritual level must be very high. The little girl looked at Xian and the others with a strange look in her eyes. Brother, why aren't you working? Dad said everyone should work. People who don't work will be punished. With her words, the surrounding silent workers slowly walked towards Xian and Gecko with weapons in hand. Gecko leaped forward, seeming to test something. A dagger quickly flew out of his hand. It directly pierced through the girl's body. Thus it can be seen that this girl has no physical presence. This action seemed to provoke the girl. She suddenly screamed out loudly. Why isn't it working? The sound accompanied by rippling energy spread throughout the entire factory. Work! Damn it! In an instant, the workers went crazy. They were shouting frantically. Gecko quickly dodged the attacks of a few people. Watching these workers going berserk and smashing things, Cui Tai suggested that the two of them retreat immediately. Spider Classic Power User is difficult. Directly addressing this kind of indirect pollution source is the solution. She will request Princess Classic from headquarters to assist in solving Power User the doll. Gecko seemed somewhat hesitant. If the doll were to take action, will these workers all die? I will go and try. After all, this concerns nearly 100 lives. Xian finds it hard to bear in mind. In an instant, he jumped down. The figure moved frantically among the workers. Not good. Gecko, stop him quickly. A strange sound came through the earpiece channel. He does have the ability to harm with psychic power indeed. But according to the information Colonel Chen gave me, it shows that his risk of losing control is not low, so he is not allowed to deal with affairs that would put heavy psychological stress on him. Although the other party is a pollution source, he looks like a child. It may cause him great psychological trauma. Preventing him from losing control takes precedence over this task. So we can't take the risk. 17 excitedly pointed to the little girl. Brother, Let's go help her, okay? I understand what solving means in the little girl's mouth. Xian immediately refused. Why? They all say that girl is fake. Because she looks pitiful. She looks real. During the question and answer session, Xian stacked various goods into mountains. He intercepted the group of crazed workers who were chasing after him. Then he turned around and looked at the little girl hugging a stuffed toy. Little sister, please stop causing trouble. Xian did not act directly. It seemed like he wanted to negotiate with her. Seeing this little girl, he felt a complicated feeling in his heart. Since the manager can produce such an indirect pollutant, then my sister and my family members, could they also be like this? The girl once again roared at Xian, questioning why he wasn't working. People who don't work should all die. Her anger infected the workers present again, who were on the verge of breaking through the barrier. Her voice filled Xian's heart with annoyance. The idea of getting rid of her directly became stronger and stronger. The anger became more and more severe. It was almost about to break Xian's rationality. At this time, a sigh sounded in the field. It doesn't seem like your siblings are suitable for dealing with these matters. Turning around, a lady in an elegant wide-brimmed hat walked gracefully from deep within the factory. What an experience to have a mom who can reason with you. Xian wanted to persuade the little girl kindly without resorting to force. The little girl, however, was ungrateful. She continued to release psychic power that could affect others' emotions. The anger that was stirred up inside. Xian was on the verge of breaking through reason and tearing apart everything in front of him. A sigh came from behind at this moment. It was followed by the crisp sound of high heels. A lady exuding an elegant temperament slowly walked into the factory. She gave Xian a gentle smile. You haven't even dated. How do you know how to educate children? Xian was taken aback. They didn't expect their mom to show up here. The little girl who had been shouting to work suddenly stopped. She seemed to sense a great threat. Young lady, at your age, you shouldn't be thinking about work. Why aren't you going to school to study? Mom squatted in front of the little girl, still so gentle. Her tone carried a hint of tenderness. What an irresponsible father he must be to instill the idea that children must work. Clearly, it is his own greedy desires that led to the accident at the factory, yet he still expects the daughter to understand him. How self-confident one must be to think that way. The factory manager, who was originally in a coma, suddenly started twitching all over. The little girl became fervent once again, angrily shouting at Xian's mother to work. Just as she shouted loudly, her voice abruptly stopped again. There was a hint of fear in her eyes. Because Xian's mother suddenly had a slight change in her expression. The little girl was instantly startled, fearfully stepping back. Xian's mother slowly reached for the toy in the little girl's hand. She took the doll, the plush toy that the girl was holding, from her arms and made direct eye contact with her. The child had better behave, or else. The other hand had already taken out a pair of scissors from her bag. The scissors were aimed at the neck of the cuddly plush doll. With a click, the invisible chain of logic connecting the little girl was severed. The plush toy's head then fell off. The girl was startled all over and looked at the toy doll's head at her feet. The little girl, originally with a look of fanaticism. Her expression suddenly became extremely stiff. Xian's mom looked at her gently. There was a slight movement at the corner of her lips. Are you a good obedient child? At this moment, the little girl could no longer control her fear. It began to slowly dissipate. The restless workers in the factory suddenly fell silent. What happened? It seems like something unusual is going on in the field. Quick inquiries came through Gecko's earphones. The gecko nearby Xian obviously paused for a moment. The indirect pollution source has been cleared. The eerie sense of crisis that surrounded it is no more. Xian watched as his mother left, together with his sister, until that figure disappeared under the red moonlight. Chui Tai confirmed with Xian. Has Mr. Single Unit indirect pollution source been removed? The little girl seems to have disappeared. Xian replied yes. Well done. She then asked the support team to enter. The factory manager was also carried out in a specially made glass box. The workers are very lucky. It's just that the medium pollution support team will send them for psychological treatment. Gecko has some questions. Curiously, he asked how he resolved the little girl's issue. He just saw Xian snatch the toy from the child's hand. Xian pointed to the doll. Others couldn't see the mother. He could only make an excuse that the toy was tangible, thinking to scare the little girl, which turned out to be quite effective. This approach is unheard of for Gecko. By breaking the toy of the indirect pollution source, the girl was scared enough to directly revert to her original form. Is that so? Can't you guys do that? Then it must be your problem for sure. This kind of statement makes sense to some extent. But just now the spiritual body dissipated directly. It doesn't seem like fleeing out of intimidation, but more like being cut off from the chain of logic up to this point. Chui Tai's voice paused slightly. Mr. Single Unit, did you do something else just now? These people are really hard to deceive. Xian is carefully thinking about what Mom just did. The key point of this incident lies in the extreme guilt of the factory manager towards his daughter, leading to his psychic power splitting off a daughter. But this daughter is just his imagination. Does not exist in reality. So as long as this point is revealed, that is to cut off the chain of logic of pollution source 039. Chui Tai seemed a bit excited. Mr. Single Unit, you did a great job. Instructed the support team to take over and finish the work. The communication channel was then closed after the job was done. After dealing with the pollution source incident, Gecko told Xian the most important lesson, which is how to prevent direct loss of control. And Gecko's method of preventing loss of control is actually to go to Flower Moon Venus and indulge in one's desires and emotions freely. Spiritual mutant has special powers. At the same time, there is also a risk of losing control. Chunibu Boy Spider Classic has a gecko with classic features. It teaches Xian the ultimate move to prevent losing control. It turns out that it's a legitimate clubhouse to indulge freely. He, who has not had emotional fluctuations for a long time, seems to also be thinking about indulging himself this time. This should also be considered as part of the job, right? Suddenly remembered something. Xian gave a gentle tug on the gecko. A serious look accompanied by a hint of excitement. Does this company headquarters provide reimbursement? The gecko almost spit out the wine it had just drunk. Are you kidding me? Xian walked out alone a minute later. Not reimbursing, while saying it's part of the job. Hee hee. Money Lover suddenly became clear-headed. Following Jing Chen's instructions, he arrived at the Security Department Training Center. The empty meeting room suddenly heard Bing Han's voice. She will be responsible for Xian's basic theoretical training. The concept of spiritual pollution source was first proposed by the Lunar Eclipse Research Institute 27 years ago. At that time, it was still called the Red Moon Institute. There are still many speculations about the special pollution source, which are still in the theoretical stage. So their philosophy is to have skepticism and practice go hand in hand. Xian listens carefully to Bing Han's training. He gradually understands the concepts of spiritual pollution and psychic power. After completing the training session, Xian bought groceries and walked back home. He thought about what had happened at the Red Moon Orphanage all those years ago. That memory is always a blur. Little Lou doesn't speak about it. Neither do the family members. Climbing up the dark stairs, room 401 seemed particularly cozy. Dad was yelling furiously at little sister. The little sister was hanging upside down from the ceiling. She was singing with her off-key voice. Filial woke up Dad, who was sleeping in the kitchen, with a commotion. Knowing full well that Dad couldn't come out, she still taunted him, saying if he had the ability, he should come out and hit her. Xian looked very pleased. It's still home. What surprised him was that his sister dared to talk back. Previously, she would either slip away or hide. You smelly brat, you're asking for it. Don't think you can hide from me and sneak some food outside. You have the nerve to talk back just because you've gotten a bit stronger. If you have the guts, never come back in your whole life. Dad seems to be a little irritated by my sister. Haha, not replying is not replying. When I grow up, I'll turn you into a toy doll. Dad turned his head and saw Xian standing at the door. Just as he was about to get angry, he saw Xian pick up a bottle of wine and some groceries he had bought. Can we have a quiet meal today? Mom is still the same as usual. She was on the phone with a Ms. Chen, inviting her to move here as a neighbor. When she saw Dad blocking the siblings at the door, she hung up the phone and came over to mediate. Ah, it's such a lavish spread. We bought a lot of dishes today. Come in quickly. I just embarrassed myself in front of my friends. Although Mom seems to have many friends, Xian has never met any of them. Xian brought up the factory north of the city. He still has too many questions to ask Mom. Mom covered her mouth and smiled elegantly. Silly child. I just happened to pass by. Seeing you and your sister standing there foolishly. Let a little girl have no way at all. Stupid but adorable. Is the little girl in the factory real? That's fake. She's just a separated spiritual body. Xian took a deep breath and continued to ask, What about you guys? As soon as those words were spoken, Dad and 17 were suddenly taken aback. Are we real? Shouldn't we see you? Our family lives together. Isn't this feeling real? Xian listened, feeling a strange emotion. Indeed, my life feels very real. At this moment, Mother took out a letter sent to Xian by someone else. It was said to be sent from the orphanage. Upon hearing orphanage, Xian knew it was sent by little Lu. Why did she send the letter? She wants to invite you over to eat dumplings. Although Mom said she didn't peek, she knows all the contents. The next day, Xian carried big and small bags for the children at the orphanage. Bought a lot of bread and sweets. I don't know why. Family members, including his younger sister, never seemed to go to the orphanage with him. However, Xian doesn't seem to have noticed. At this time, a mysterious man with a large beard appeared. He was sucking on a straw and smiling at him strangely. Red Moon Elementary School is an orphanage. There is only one teacher inside. She is a classmate from Xian Orphanage, a survivor of the event 10 years ago. After receiving the invitation from little Lu to eat dumplings, he arrived at the elementary school as scheduled. He, who values money greatly, secretly sponsors Red Moon Elementary School year after year, although he has sealed away that painful memory of his own. But he always feels an inexplicable sense of guilt towards the orphanage. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by little Lu sitting in a wheelchair. He asked you to come and eat dumplings. Why you're sending money again? Little Lu asked with some confusion. Why did you send money again so soon? And how come you sent so much money last time? He started to worry if Xian was up to no good. He even asked if his kidneys were still there. Of course they are. Both are there. Xian has to admire little Lu's imagination. He said he recently found a job. The boss is very generous. He definitely won't do anything bad. He remembers all the words of the old dean. Little Lu also shared happily with Xian the news that the school's formal qualifications has been approved. The children will be able to obtain legal status and continue their studies in middle school. Xian was somewhat surprised after listening that the orphanage was actually able to obtain the approval under the current conditions. She wondered if Colonel Chen and the Department of Special Circumstances had helped. She lowered her head to look at little Lu in the wheelchair. She was originally a tall girl. It's a pity she has been sitting in a wheelchair all this time. Little Lu took out an envelope from the mailbox containing money. I don't need so much money now. Let Xian keep it for herself first. Even though I don't know what job Xian does, she must be very tired if she is given so much money. Xian asked little Lu about what happened at Red Moon Bright Orphanage that year. He still couldn't remember what exactly happened. Little Lu's eyes avoided Xian after hearing that. He told Xian not to keep thinking about the past. Sometimes, not remembering certain things is also a blessing. Let's go! Let's go eat dumplings. They have eggs inside. Coming out of the orphanage, it was already night. This night felt very fulfilling to him. Xian, who was lost in his thoughts, did not notice that someone had been following him. He was still thinking about Teacher Lu's heartfelt smile. It was really beautiful. The man in sunglasses was still staring at him intently. He even showed a creepy smile. Xian stopped in his tracks at this moment. He turned his head and looked at that man, quietly observing him. The man was smiling very happily. Xian still watched him quietly. The man's smile gradually stiffened. Xian took out the pistol and aimed it at him. She pulled the trigger directly. The man was somewhat surprised and angry. He didn't expect Xian to shoot directly. He dodged the bullets with a strange agility, but one grazed his shoulder. Unable to hold back, he cursed Xian as a lunatic. Then he bounced up and leaped back, his body rising and falling as he fled to the rear. Xian obviously wouldn't just let him go like that. This person is too suspicious. But this man seems to be able to fly. It's as if with just a reach of his hand, he grabbed onto two invisible threads. During the escape, he kept provoking Xian to chase after him. The man easily leaped over a deep gap in the road, thinking that he wouldn't be able to follow. But he didn't expect Xian to jump over without hesitation. However, the man's clumsy body fell directly into the deep pit, where sharp steel bars awaited below. It would be certain death if he fell. Xian, however, remained calm. He quietly reached out his hand and called out to his sister. 17's tiny figure suddenly appeared with a bang, racing towards Xian at top speed. Haha, brother, I'm here. In an instant, Xian's figure suddenly became agile, stepping on a sharp piece of steel rebar. Seizing the opportunity to jump into the air, Red Moon was there. His figure became ghostly. The man was instantly shocked. He did not expect Xian's originally clumsy figure would suddenly become unusually agile. His figure also immediately accelerated, rushing forward urgently. Two figures one after the other in the dark night. But in terms of speed, Xian was obviously faster. He was catching up quickly. With 100 meters to go, the figure of the opponent became clearer and clearer in Xian's eyes. Just saw the man leap onto the wall, climbing rapidly upwards. Is he trying to break through the wall? We can't let this person escape outside the wall. Seeing the other side about to break through the wall, Xian threw the gun into the air with force. Sister, shoot him. 17, jumping in the air, suddenly revealed a strange smile. The mysterious man kept provoking Xian with his agile steps. But soon he regretted it. The pride he had in his speed was directly crushed by Xian. They chased each other all the way to under the wall. It seemed he was about to escape outside the wall. Xian threw the pistol upwards with force. He called on his sister, who was already jumping in the air, to shoot him dead. Haha 17 tightly held the pistol and aimed at the rapidly climbing dark figure, firing continuously. The accuracy was top-notch. The bullet seemed to predict his movements, piercing through his neck directly. His whole head instantly shattered and flew out. This scene, however, caught Xian by surprise. How could a relatively low-powered revolver directly break this person's neck? Could it be that his body is more fragile than an ordinary person's? The headless body hung alone on the wall. Haha, all settled. The sister played with the toy in her hand and returned to Xian's side. But at that moment, the headless body suddenly convulsed. Leaning on its limbs, it continued to climb rapidly upwards. In an instant, it had already crossed over the wall. Oh no, Xian did not expect that the headless person could still move agilely. He hurried over and climbed the wall quickly. Upon reaching the top of the wall, relying on exceptionally keen vision, he saw a dark figure riding a motorcycle speeding away in the wilderness outside the wall. Soon, the headless corpse rode the motorcycle, twisted the throttle to the maximum, and disappeared deep into the wilderness. "Who goes there? Raise your hands immediately, or we will open fire." Upon hearing the noise, the 4th Brigade of the City Patrol Corps arrived at the scene. Exion first stopped his sister with his eyes, then took out his Department of Special Circumstances identification and indicated that he needed to make a call. After receiving Exion's phone call, Jingchen arrived at the wall by helicopter. She asked about what happened with Exion and how he discovered the anomaly. "I was walking on the road before, minding my own business. He kept staring at me, so I shot him." Jingchen felt a bit horrified. "Because he was looking at you, you just shot him directly." Exion finally said that he saw that person. Live threads like parasites crawled out from behind. That person must have thought that Exion couldn't see him, so he was very at ease and still laughing there. He even stretched those threads towards his forehead. Exion wanted to figure out why that person was acting so strangely, so he chased after him. The person was very fast, unlike Spider Classic. He can use those threads to hook onto things from afar. It's like he can fly. I find it difficult to catch up with him. Until he was about to climb over the wall, so I decided to kill him." "Just because you thought he was a bit strange? And you decided to kill him?" "It's because he appeared near the orphanage." Jingchen finally understood the key point. Because it posed a threat to the Red Moon Orphanage. So Exion made the decision without hesitation. At this time, the support team found the missing skull. They put it in a transparent glass box and brought it over. Exion suddenly felt a bit horrified. A body without a head can still run. It's so scary. Jingchen glanced at him. "From a timing perspective, you are only having a horrified reaction now. Isn't it a bit slow?" After taking off his glasses, Jingchen stared at the skull. "You should blink your eyes." The lifeless skull suddenly trembled, as if wanting to open its eyes. Exion looked at Jingchen oddly. She could actually communicate with the skull. She saw that her pupils had turned red. "You should tell me. Who are you?" The skull continued to tremble for a moment. Unfortunately, after that slight tremble, it remained motionless. Failed. However, it seemed to be within her expectations. He had the support team on the side dissect it. The support team opened the carry-on luggage. Various props came into view. There was even a pregnancy test kit. Exion on the side was stunned. It seems like this support team has everything. It was only after cutting it open that they found out it was a mind reformer. Power is somewhat similar to Jingchen. Tools can be controlled through the mind. This should be done by a very powerful Puppet Classic power user. Puppet Classic is somewhat surprised to hear about this kind of power for the first time. This world is so crazy. Jingchen continues to educate Exion. Currently, the known powers have reached 9. Puppet Classic is one of them. In fact, there are doubts raised by the professors in Main City about Exion's power. Believe that Exion does not belong to Spider Classic. Instead, it is a newly discovered power type. With this suggestion, Exion's power classic should be called Family Gathering. She asked the support team to send the physical evidence to the Research Institute to see if they could find more valuable clues. At this moment, Jingchen also became serious. This matter must be taken seriously this time. The disaster brought by Technology Church to Force Satellite Town 4 years ago can't happen again. Since the arrival of the Red Moon, the world has been in chaos ever since. There are many organizations outside the wall. They are also recruiting spiritual mutants. They are crazier and more unrestrained in the use and development of power. But these Exion are indifferent. What he cares about is what will happen if these people target the orphanage again. What should be done? Jingchen can see the importance of the orphanage to Exion. If something happens to the orphanage that causes him to lose control and go on a rampage, it would be a catastrophic disaster for the second city. Immediately call and notify Red Moon Elementary School to pay close attention. Arrange the best location for them with the reason of teardown and redevelopment. They have to be on guard regardless of whether the people outside the city are coming for the orphanage. She then ordered that starting from today, all special task forces will cancel their holidays. A comprehensive citywide inspection and cleanup operation will be carried out. Exion's next step is to go to the company and ask for leave from the chief. After all, from the salary perspective, with a base salary of 5,000 and an additional 1,000, he can clearly distinguish which is more important. The reason for applying to the chief is that Exion needs to take care of his little sister who is sick. 17, who was enjoying his meal on the side, paused when he heard this. Little did he know that the chief was even more delighted than him. It can be considered that they have successfully removed this big shot who carries a gun to work every day. He agreed immediately. Exion didn't expect Chief to be so understanding and reasonable. Quickly promised that his younger sister is fine. He just returned to work. During the period of being on standby at the security department, you don't have to do anything. Not only are meals provided, but there is also a daily subsidy of 200 yuan for meal expenses. Exion is so happy. Until the third day. The earphones rang with the voice of Bing Han. A suspected special pollution source was found at the mine cave complex in the northern part of the city, and Exion needs to go over and deal with it. The incident originated from a report by the local inhabitants, claiming that someone was following her. However, upon investigation, it was found that there was no such tracking incident. It was simply the woman's delusion. During the questioning process, it was discovered that not only this woman who made the report, but the entire local inhabitants were in a state of inexplicable tension. They were constantly shrouded in fear, even experiencing hallucinations. 2 people have already gotten into a fight due to excessive emotional stress, resulting in one person being killed. The investigation team intervened in the investigation process. It has been preliminarily determined that there is a phenomenon of spiritual pollution. However, the investigation process has encountered obstacles. They are afraid and unable to conduct the investigation work. In the blink of an eye, Exion arrived at the mine cave complex as instructed. Leading the investigation team was Hui Chung, who approached Exion with gratitude. After all, in the Ranchin case, his life was saved by Exion. They are near Building C and have detected obvious psychic power radiation. However, they all failed in the process of entering Building C. So it's impossible to determine the exact location of the pollution source. When entering the location from the 9th to 12th floors, you will feel an inexplicable fear. When the fear reaches its limit, you may even experience strong dizziness and fainting. Exion asked Bing Han what the reason is. Bing Han speculated that it might be due to the impact of this particular pollution source, distorting people's emotions and amplifying feelings of fear. Her suggestion is to first identify the pollution source before deciding whether to clean it up or seal it off. Looked up at Building C. It does give one a slightly eerie feeling. Came to the 6th floor. Indeed, there is a growing sense of fear, subconsciously making people not want to get closer. If even you cannot resist this feeling of fear, you can retreat. Exion, however, said he had already gotten used to this feeling before. After all, his father is afraid of the ceiling. Arriving at a dim corridor, Exion saw a faint white spot swiftly approaching him. There was no sound, and it was twisted and weird. It turned out to be 17. She looked a bit resentful as she gazed at Exion. "Brother, you've changed your mind. Busy chatting with women, pretending not to see me waiting for you." Exion pulled her into his arms. Taking out a piece of candy from his pocket, 17 happily accepted it with both hands. The arrival of his younger sister made Exion feel much more at ease. This kind of fear seemed much weaker compared to his initial encounter with family members. Ultimately, he realized that the fear on the 10th floor was the strongest. Through careful sensing, he found the room where the pollution source was located. The intense fear emanating from it made people feel as if they were standing at the gates of hell. Looking at the closed door, Exion pondered on how to open this door lock. 17, who was eating candy, glanced at the door, then slipped out of Exion's arms. I saw her reach out her hand, and with a grab, the iron door was torn open like paper. Exion held out a thumbs up to his younger sister as a sign of approval. This really made 17 show off with arrogance. Just pushed open the door. A breathtaking stench hits you in the face. Inside is a figure crumpled on the ground. The smell emanates from him. What makes Exion cautious is the silhouette on the balcony. He sits quietly by the window, gazing at the scenery outside. That strong sense of fear originates from that silhouette. The younger sister's eyes lit up as she stared at that silhouette. Exion naturally knew what her younger sister wanted to do. She immediately asked 17 to dispel the idea. Don't bully him. Exion approached him. She asked him softly if they could communicate. However, the shadow just sat there quietly, hugging his knees, without any response. He reported to Bing Han that it had been confirmed. It's just an ordinary pollution source. After turning around, he switched on the light in the room. He clearly saw the corpse lying on the ground. As the lights came on, the dark figure began to disappear. Even the sense of fear in this room seemed to dissipate a lot. Multiple areas of decay have already appeared on the body. It looks like they have been dead for about 4 to 5 days. Judging from the position in which he crawled off the bed, it seems that he was trying to reach for this bottle of medicine before he died. But he failed. At this time, Bing Han also found information about the deceased. Living alone. No registered relatives. From this bottle of nitroglycerin, the deceased may have died due to a sudden heart attack, unable to get the medication in time. Bing Han suggests using a special containment bag to contain the body first, cutting off the pollution source's connection with the outside. Exion agreed and put the body in the bag. After sealing it up, he then informed the support team downstairs to enter. He asked Bing Han how this pollution source was formed. Bing Han analyzed that the young man lived alone without family or friends. It should be the intense emotions before death that caused his mind to undergo mutation. He had no harmful intentions, so he just formed a pollution source below the level D instead of a spirit monster. Leaving behind a pollution source filled only with fear should be because he was very scared. No one can even find out if they die, concerned about their own fear. Exion instinctively glanced over. Not far away, the little sister is playing with toys. I am fortunate to have family with me. As Exion left, she looked at the room. Is this investigation almost over? I hope there won't be more pollution incidents like this in the future. Bing Han sensed that Exion's mood seemed a bit low. He asked if Exion was feeling somewhat resistant to similar pollution incidents. Exion does indeed dislike this type of thing. However, since he has received his salary, he must do his job well. Speaking of which, he also asked about the compensation for this time. Don't worry. I've got your back. I am on your side. Tasks like this one. The difficulty level is not even as high as D level. In general, the remuneration is only around 10,000. But I can at least help you apply for 12,000. Exion felt instantly better after listening. Bing Han and I started another endless cycle of thanking each other. So verbose that even 17 on the side couldn't bear to listen. Why don't you just go to Main City to thank her in person? Are you lacking a girlfriend? Exion suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Don't talk nonsense, little sister. She is a colleague. Don't even think about it, I'm telling you. Girls from Main City are all pampered. They are beautiful and have good personalities. I heard they are like little fairies who don't need toilet paper when they go to the bathroom. And you are just a small employee from Satellite Town. Is it reasonable to not use toilet paper? I don't know where you heard such things, little sister. A car appeared behind Exion. A young person in the car pointed at Exion. Is that Mr. Su the single unit? The old man looked in the direction he was pointing. Is it true that he has a high risk of losing control? At least from the current information, he actually shows the least amount of loss of control. He is the only one able to directly see and solve the spiritual monsters. So far, there is only him. The old man nodded. He didn't have any other choice anyway. But this is a private commission. It must be ensured that there is no direct contact with the cleaning department. No problem. You just need to set a time. The old man sighed softly. Then let's make it tomorrow.